One of the biggest debates right now is the value of synthetic data or data that's generated by artificial intelligence. I saw a really interesting application for that in election result prediction. This is from a paper that was published out of Wuhan University in November, specifically November 3rd, so before the election. And what they did was the researchers generated a bunch of synthetic data that was demographically tuned to particular states' demographic makeup and that was weighted by the state's voting history. And then they generated a bunch of synthetic data off of the tuned baseline knowledge base that they fed to ChatGPT 4.0. And so they would do things like say, okay, you are a 35-year-old white woman in Vermont. Who are you voting for in this presidential election? And then they would see what synthetic data was generated by ChatGPT 4.0 based on what the model could read of the state's voting preferences broken out by demographics. And you might think, well, that's super reductive. How informative is it? They were able to correctly forecast Trump's victory in the Electoral College. They got within, depending on their exact approach, within about 5 to 10 Electoral College votes, so about one state off. So it was surprisingly accurate, actually. I was a little bit shocked. I wasn't expecting it to be that useful. And I think that as we continue to run into a world where traditional polling has more and more questions around it because people don't answer their phones all the time, internet polling has a lot of other issues. We may see in future electoral cycles more and more focus on how synthetic data that is tuned can help us get more reliable estimates of what's going on. So I actually thought about like how would I replicate this? You have to get a large data set. You have to get the crosstabs broken out across multiple electoral cycles across all 50 states in the US so that you understand how different demographics have changed their votes over time on average. And then you're going to have to, in a very clear and structured way, prepare ChatGPT 4.0 with that data so you can ask it questions and start to generate synthetic data. It's not a light undertaking, but I would think after sort of seeing their general approach that we will see a lot of follow-up papers that seek to take this and fine-tune it. For example, this didn't include inflation or economic data as far as I can see. And yet everyone who was leaving the polls or talking about the election, like inflation was a major topic. And so I would expect that we will start to see more sophisticated use of the context window to set up these chatbots to generate this synthetic data. And I would guess that that would make synthetic data even more predictive. But to be honest, getting within 5 or 10 electoral votes on a very crude sort of demographic basis is pretty good. So we will see what happens, but I thought I would share that approach. I think it's an interesting example of how synthetic data can be valuable and even predictive in certain situations. I'll put the paper in the link underneath.